Hey everybody, this is Ramon Ray, founder of SmartHustle.com. Thanks for joining me for another exciting discussion with a long time, I'll call him distant friend of mine, John Warlow, who maybe many of you know already, have read many of his books over the last few years, as I have as well. But again, Ramon Ray, SmartHustle.com. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this podcast, watch this video, read this article. If you're hearing the sound of my voice, feel free to give us a rating, 5-star rating, 500-star rating, give a comment, give a review, hit a share, do something. We'd be so grateful, appreciate it that you're learning how to grow your business with the Smart Hustle community. John Warlow, welcome, man. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Congrats on your longevity. And I don't mean that you're an old man. You and I are probably similar age, but that you've been like me and some of our friends, right? We've been serving small businesses and growing businesses for a while. So
I'm a very slow learner, Ramon. You got to know this about me. Yeah, you're right. Since I guess 90, the late 90s, I've been studying entrepreneurs and certainly serving them through a couple companies. So yeah, you're right.
Absolutely, John. And I know you're one of your flagship programs, or the flagship program is the Value Builder System. I'd love to hear, John, about what that is. Congratulations to your new book coming out or out already, The Art of Selling Your Business, Winning Strategies and Secret Hacks for Exiting on the Top. So I just want to hear what you have to say, John, about those things. And maybe at the top, let's do three things. One, can you just give us an intro to you, a little bit who you are, and then I'll remind you, I'd love to know about the Value Builder System and about the book. So, but first, about yourself, just recap. Who's John Warlow and why do I think he's so cool?
Well, I've been involved in a few startup businesses and made every mistake there is to make. Ultimately sold those businesses or exited out of them and codified or tried to document some of the things that I learned about building to sell in a book called Built to Sell,
right?
Which came out in 2011. I then wrote a book called The Automatic Customer, which is about accelerating the growth of your business once it's able to thrive without you. And then there was this kind of missing component, which is sort of how do you harvest the value of a business once you've created and increased its value, which is the new book is really about the art of selling your business and how do you harvest it. So that's me in a nutshell. I think we teach what we want to learn, right? And
that's true.
For me, I really wanted to understand the process of selling a company. And so having gone through it a few times, I think I've made some mistakes and learned a little bit along the way. And that's kind of what we talk about.
I love it. And indeed, John, I'm curious, is it an art? It's possibly could be a rhetorical question, but I'm curious, how much would you say it's science? Like I can take any company and you do this, whatever. And how much is it more like a cook? Becky, I can't tell you it's 8 ounces. I need to know when you put the chicken in and what I don't cook, but I'm just making some metaphorical. So how much would you say it's art or versus, is there some academic who can say, nope, here's the recipe, go sell your business in 10 years? What do you say?
Right. Well, I think, advisors often present it as an academic objective science, right? Like it's going to be 3.2 times your SDE and we throw out these acronyms. In reality, I believe it is very much an art that two companies can look at the same business and arrive at wildly different valuations for that business. I can think of one example out of the gate that I wrote about where, the difference between offers was like 3x.
Wow.
It's incredible how the same company can be valued based on different formulas by different companies. So one of the kind of core tenets of a successful exit is not placing a value on your company. Selling a business is not like selling a home. When you sell a home, you place a value on it, an asking price. In the case of a business, I believe you want to let the market value your company. You want to let the world sort of know about the business and its benefits, et cetera. But the market should really place a value on your company.
And John, help me understand how that works. So I'm coming to John, I'm sitting in John's home. He's serving me some tea with no sugar. Please, I'm trying. And I want to buy Value Builder System. Are you saying, John, and this is a simple example, that John's going to keep his mouth shut and just talk about what he's done, we have a team and all this, and let me say, or what if I say, well, John, how much do you want? Give me I have the check here, just metaphorically. And if I'm on the wrong base, correct me. But
no, not at all. Yeah.
Is that the idea?
Yeah, and that question, Ron, is one of the questions we often get wrong because it feels very natural, right? An acquirer will come to you and say, Ramon, like, you've got this great business. Like,
Right.
what do you think you want for it? And the moment we answer that question is the moment we put a ceiling on which we will never sell our company for. And I'll give you an example. There's the lead-in story in the new book is about a piece of art. It is developed or created by a guy named Ryman, who was a leader in the minimalist art genre in the 1960s. It is literally a white square. And it's sold at a Christie's auction for more than $20 million.
Okay.
I look at like my old high school cafeteria and how there's like those ceiling tiles that kind of get all like brown at the edges. Like that's what I see when I see this piece of art. Yet somebody had it in their heart to spend $20 million to buy this white square on a white canvas. It's ridiculous to me and you because we're not minimalist art lovers, or maybe I'm speaking for you, but
I'm not.
And so I think that's an analogy for selling a company is your business will be worth very different amounts depending on who is looking at it. And so again, you don't want to answer that question. The way I would coach you to answer that question is, hey, I'm a reasonable guy. I will entertain any reasonable offer that you want to make for my company. Is there anything you want to know about it? And that process of teaching the acquirer about the business is there's a real science to how you do that, but it starts with something called a teaser. You have them sign an NDA, and then it goes to something called a SIM. And all the while you're educating the acquirer about your business to the point where they are ready to make an offer. But the biggest mistake one of the biggest mistakes we make is answering that question. And it's the death knell because you'll never sell it for a penny more. And most acquirers will make it their business to try to actually get you to accept much less than that because they know what your top dollar is.
Sure. So John, let's dive into this a bit more, and let's use a service. Now, does this matter, services business versus product business? If we're looking at your book and the things that you're doing in your team, does it matter each one, or are you leaning towards a certain type, or does this work for both types before I ask my next question?
Yeah, no, it works for both types. Service companies, you really want to productize your service, make it look like a thing as opposed to an hourly offering, because of course, an hourly offering is dependent on a person. And if they're buying your business, clearly you're moving away. So if it is a service company, there's a pre-step you want to go through, which is again, productizing your service. But what I read about in the book works for both service companies and product businesses.
Got it. And I'm guessing for sure the mistake that I'm making even now, John, is to get your name out of it, or not your name per se, but yourself out of it. I'm guessing that's important to not have it about Ramon, because Ramon wants to go fishing in Hawaii or go skiing with John somewhere. That's right. That part of it as well.
That's right. Yeah, you've got. I mean, one of the first steps, and really, this is the essence of Built to Sell. My first book is how do you basically pull yourself out of the company so that it can thrive without you. That is a precursor to selling the business. It's got to be able to thrive without you. So that's really the whole kind of idea behind the book, Built to Sell.
Right. God, I love it. And then those who are looking to look at The Art of Selling Your Business by John Warlow, is there any particular type of person this is for? Someone who just finished a SCORE webinar, should they be reading the book? And I'm not trying to get you to shoot yourself in the foot here, but I'm teasing a bit. Should they be reading the book? Or is it more so the 60-year-old guy with some gray hair or gal who wants to retire and they bought 2 yachts already? Or is it for Ramon too? Help me metaphorically understand, who is it for? Should they be looking at this like, we just launched our company, let's read John's book or books as a blueprint? Or is it more, don't read it now, you can learn about how to retarget on Twitter, read it in 10 years?
Yeah, great question. I think it's a little bit like a box set. I think of it that way. If you're in the earlier camp, you're doing a SCORE webinar, you're very early in your entrepreneurial journey, I think it makes sense to go through them as a trilogy. Start with Built to Sell, learn how to create your business so that it's not dependent on you. Go to Automatic Customer, which is all about creating recurring revenue and subscription models. And then it's time to harvest the value. It's about the art of selling your company. I would do it in that order. If you are, I think there's a sweet spot, and it is companies that have a value of, let's say, below $20 million.
Okay.
Because those companies really, when you get into companies that are much larger than that, there's a whole army of M&A professionals and investment bankers who, this is their job. They know their stuff really, really well, and they will guide you through the process. in those businesses that are worth somewhere between, on the lower end, say 500,000, on the upper end, maybe 10 or $20 million, that's less well understood. And while there's still an important role for a business broker or an M&A professional, you're going to have to do a little bit more of the heavy lifting. And so knowing what the successful process looks like, what the tips and tricks, do's and don'ts are, is going to be really important, because this is like, most owners, like, this is the one shot, right? It's like Sully landing the plane on the Hudson, right? Screw this up, there are big stakes, big things at stake, right? You get one shot to grease the landing. Right. And so I think it's worth really spending a little bit of time making sure you're aware of the various moves you got to play.
Got it. So the founders of Netflix, or the founders of, whatever other, Dwayne Reed or something, whatever, they don't need to read John Willow's book. Safely say, guys, read it if you want, or buy it for your family, but you don't need it. Who needs to read it is Becky, who has a $3 million cupcake company. Jonathan, whose law firm is growing. He's doing well, 1.2 million, 4 million, whatever. Awesome. That's who you need. That's who needs to read it.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Love it. And you may have answered this already, John, so forgive me if you have, but I want to ask it the way that that I have the question prepared. What are some of those dirty secrets, the things that don't go so well when that smaller company has big daddy or big mama, whatever, metaphor, wants to buy their company? Is it one or two things or a whole bunch? I'm curious what you're going to say. What is that secret, that nasty thing that happens in the boardroom? What are you talking about here?
Yeah, look, one of the things you have to acknowledge is that when you sell your company, it's like a David and Goliath battle, right? Okay. And generally, acquiring companies are going to be between 5 and 20 times the size of your business, according to the 5 to 20 rule. So by definition, you're going to be dealing with someone that's much larger, much more sophisticated. And oftentimes this is what they do for a living. They buy companies. They're like a private equity group or a corporate development person. So they're going to have all the tricks of the trade. One of the most dubious, and again, I try in the book to point out all of the things you've got to avoid. One of the most dubious is retrading. And retrading is where the acquirer will get you to agree to a price for your company and get you to sign a letter of intent. Whereas basically it's kind of like, in a marital terms, it's like getting engaged, right? Yeah. You're agreeing to go get married, right? But there's this little due diligence window, usually 60 days, where they verify everything about your company. And that's when, usually 24 hours, maybe 48 hours before closing, they start retrading. And retrading is when they start to lower the price that they're willing to offer you. They say, I really like your business, Ramon, but we found something in due diligence. And so we're going to actually have to, lower our price. And there's two types of retrading. There's legitimate retrading, which happens when your financial performance starts to drift during due diligence. And so you got to make sure you hit your numbers during diligence. But there's also, and this is the dirty little secret, there's also illegitimate retrading, which is where they know you bought the boat and the ski house and and then they start to retrade.
They come in and say, we'll buy you for 100 million. You're great. The money's already spent, John. But then because you have the walls blue, 70 million. Because you have gray carpet, 50 million. That's what I'm hearing in my silly way. But you're so happy, but they know they weren't offering you 100 million. They just wanted you to get it and they just pulled you down.
Yeah, I'll give you a real life story in the book. A guy agreed to sign a letter of intent to sell his construction business for $1 million. Okay. This was an Iraq veteran, a guy who didn't have a lot of business experience, came back from 2 tours and said, you know what, I'm pretty good with my hands. I can start a construction business. Built a business up to $1 million in annual revenue.
Good for him.
Great business, 7 or 8 employees. And during the diligence period, the buyer changed the terms, retrading. They said, you know what? We're not going to actually give you $1 million up front. We're going to give you 100,000 up front. And then over the next series of years, we're going to give you tranches of payments. And he was disappointed, but at the end of the day, agreed to that deal. Well, guess what? The first payment never came. The second, the third, and the fourth payments never came. Ultimately, he had to walk away from his business with virtually nothing. The secret, though, or the misstep, I think, was the agreeing to the retrading during the diligence phase, which again is something that is, acquirers often use this as a negotiation ploy. And so just knowing it allows you to punch above your weight when you go to a sale process, knowing that that's a trick they try to play.
I love this. So it seems to me, John, I actually, as I'm hearing this now, that this is definitely the perfect book for those who've grown their business, for anybody, for those who've grown their business, and they're maybe a year, 2 or 3 away from selling. They want to understand this inside and out and dive into the other things that you probably offer as well. That's what I'm hearing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the folks who are a couple, 3 years away are in a great position to start to make the moves now to get ready to go to market. One of the things that we talk a lot about is push and pull factors. So right now we're recording this at the beginning of 2021. COVID is raging and it's devastating for a lot of small business owners. 2020 has been just a crushing year for a lot of small business owners. A lot of people in the speaking industry, we're talking offline about how this has been difficult. And so a lot of business owners are feeling a lot of push factors right now. They're feeling push factors are things that frustrate you about your company. They're the things that are annoying, government red tape, et cetera. The secret though to a successful exit is to have a pull factor. And a pull factor is something you're excited to go do. I talk about in the book a guy named Sean Oshman. He built a little IT company, $2 or $3 million in annual revenue, and he turns 30. And 30 is one of those milestone birthdays, right? Like you're no longer, I mean, you're probably not even a day over that. But in any event, you go and you realize, my gosh, life is not forever. I got to grow up. And in his case, Sean Oshman's case, he said, you know what, by the age of 40, I want to be living life on a sailboat. And so Oshman builds this IT company up, again, builds it by the time he's 39, he's got a few $1 million in revenue. And he realizes he's got a year to sell before he can fulfill his dream of living on a sailboat. So he goes to a broker and says, what do you think it's worth? And the broker kind of hums and haws and says, it's probably worth 2 or 3 times earnings, 2 or 3 times profit. And Oshman goes, okay, great. As long as you can get me the 2 or 3 times in a year, I'll sign with you. He signs. Anyway, 6 months later, the broker comes back. Sure enough, they are able to sell it for 2 to 3 times earnings. Now, you and I might be hearing 2 to 3 times, and we're hearing like Tesla's trading at some astronomical multiple, and you're like, that's not exactly a huge windfall for this guy, Sean. In actual fact, Oshman's happy as a clam.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's living on his boat. 2 or 3 times earnings was plenty for him to buy his boat and live happily the next chapter of his life on the high seas. And so the kind of moral of the story is Oshman had a pull factor. He wasn't just frustrated with his company and wanting out for any price. He was really excited to go do something else, in this case, living on a sailboat. And so if you're 2 or 3 years away from selling, what I would be coaching you to do is getting really clear about what you want to go do next. Get excited about what's next on the horizon, because I mean, none of us as entrepreneurs, especially hustlers, like the guys that your audience, I mean, we're never going to be happy, rocking chair on the porch, drinking our lemonade, thinking about the good old days. Like that's not the way we are wired, right? We're always going to want to go do another thing, start another business, get involved in philanthropy or whatever.
Yes, and philanthropy is a big deal. That's want to underline that, but continue on.
No, I was whatever it is that kind of turns you, writing a book, starting whatever that is exciting, getting crystal clear about what that excitement, what that new thing, the next shiny ball is, I think is one of the secrets to having a happy exit, being able to look back on it with satisfaction.
I love it, John. I think that it sounds to me like this is why it's an art. I don't know if that's 1/2, 1/3 or whatever in the book and your life's work. It seems to me, John, and I don't know, I'm not going to cry right now, but I feel like crying, but I cry very easily. But I feel like as a speaker, for example, I'll just use numbers. Ramon, they paid you $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 to speak. Oh, you could have gotten $25,000. So let's assume, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, but let's assume that with these buying and selling, very few times are going to be astronomically different. Somebody paid you $3 million. Somebody else wasn't going to pay you $60 million. So going back to being happy, okay, I got $15,000 to speak. You got 20. It's within the range of I'm happy. So what I'm trying to say in a probably not saying it so well, John, is that what I'm hearing you say is if you have your end goal as well, you then, if you're doing everything right, which in the book and things that you teach, you'll be happy. You're not feeling taken advantage of because your end goal. Now, if your goal is I want to buy Amazon, yeah, this dude who sold his business for 2 or 3 times, he should be depressed.
Yeah.
But if your goal is whatever your goal is, I think that's a huge part, John. I love that, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's so, we talked about mistakes people make and what are the kind of sleazy things acquirers do. It comes back to this idea of regret and your example of like, I got 15 or 20 or 50, whatever, and I'm happy. One of the ways you're going to be happy is if you can get multiple offers. It allows you to objectively sit back and say, okay, I've got 3 offers and they range from, X to X plus 25%. And so, with a high degree of certainty or relative certainty that that's probably the range for your company. You've got 3 offers and then you can make a decision based on those 3 offers, which is the best fit. If, however, you get lured into a prop deal, you lose that. What's a prop deal? Prop deal is when usually a private equity company, oftentimes a strategic acquirer, suckers you into signing a letter of intent without creating competitive tension, without marketing your business. They will shower you with praise. Ramon, you built such a great business. We want to partner together. And they'll kind of sucker you in to a point where you're deep into negotiations with one acquirer. Why is that a problem? Well, number one, you're never going to get a sense of true, how did I do? Did I get a fair price? Because you'll only be dealing with one acquirer. Number two, they know you're the only, they're the only game in town. So they're likely to lower their price. And probably the third thing, and it may be the worst, is they're most likely to drag out due diligence and retrade. Again, knowing that we're in this negotiation in a one-on-one basis. There's nobody else at the table. And so they're much more likely to retrade. And they've given a name to this. You never want to be like the butt of somebody's joke. Yeah. They've given a name to this. It's called a prop deal. And they talk about, oh yeah, I got a prop deal. Oh, I got one over here. It's a prop deal. You don't want to be the butt of their joke, the object of their joke. So avoid a prop deal.
Wow. If anybody's in the middle of a prop deal right now that you can back up from, buy John's book. Do be nice. Don't be mean. Just buy John's book, put a candy bar or bow on it and say, thanks, guys or gals, and just send them that book and smile and wave as you go away. But John, this has been amazing. John Warlow, I'm going to check out your book. I have it ready, but I'm going to check it out and send it to some friends for sure, John. Anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to share, anything I didn't say? My interviews are short, concise, to the point. I let people go read and go Google on their own. But anything, John, you wanted to share before we conclude?
No, just keep doing what you're doing. I think I love what you're doing, and I love the message that you're spreading. You're helping a lot of people. So thanks for letting me spend some time with you.
Absolutely, John. It's been fun. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is John Warlow. Definitely check out his brand new book in the trilogy, The Art of Selling Your Business, Winning Strategies and Secret Hacks for Exiting on the Top. I follow John for many, many, many years, and you should as well. This is Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com. If you're listening to the sound of my voice, definitely give us a review, give us a rating, give us 5 stars, 1 million stars, whatever you like, and share. And thank you for your time. Honored to be here today.